Oh, hi there. I'm Woodman. I'm the creative head for the One Animation Studio here in Jakarta. You know, I've learned a few things over the last 25 years I've worked in this industry. I have a few tips. If you're interested, come on in.
Okay, today's tip is on observation as it relates to animation, design, asset, and concept art. This is what I normally see from my design and asset team. They spend very little time researching something like this water faucet and hose. They're simply copying the story sketch. Now, what will happen if the hose is turned on? Here's what an actual water faucet and hose look like. Notice there's a brass fitting which screws on, attaching the hose to the faucet. Otherwise, when you turn on the water, the hose just pops off, right? Attention to detail. How is it working? I like to just observe everything that's around me. This is a little community store and a seamstress shop right around the corner from my flat. You can see the customers come in. This guy's got a very unique little bike. He is a welder. He goes to wherever the work is and he does the welding repair. Look at all the clutter in this place. Remember, this is a functioning small community store. Everything in here is either something that's going to be sold, like the propane tanks, the water, or goods and services, or it's a personal item from the people who live there. Look closely at what items are here and how they are stacked up. The propane, there's different sizes, they're stacked in different groups, but there's great variety. It looks like it's a working location, and everything there is exactly where it should be, and there is great variation in the way it's naturally stacked. I mean, these guys don't throw anything away. They're any kind of old material, the shelf, an old cart, a fan, they got a painter's tray. Everything's going to be used or reused. Nothing gets thrown away. Here's his little office, right? So notice there's a desk and there's all these little bitty bins, and each bin will have different amounts of money so he can make his change. The microwave is not really working, but it's being used as sort of a little shelving, compartment. Behind him you have all the little bubblegum, cigarettes, whatever medicine that people are looking for, and snacks. And he's got that fan in front of him to keep him cool while he sits and waits. Next to him is the family kitchen, and there's a stair that takes them from the downstairs to the upstairs to the living quarters. But look at how all the little pans are stacked up. Everything looks used. People live here in this location. Wonderful variety, and it's natural. Look at natural settings, study them, and then your work will look more natural. Next to the little store is the seamstress house. But notice the plants and the pots, all the different variation, even the stones that the pots are stacked on. Nothing is straight. Everything has got nicks, cracks. Cars come by and they bang into it. Everything has what we call is history. This place has a history. It's lived in. It's used. As you move around, the shop, you can see more plants. Look at this old bench. It's kind of busted and broken, but they stacked the plants up there. As we get to the door of the shop, again, look at how interesting it is. Every detail, the little steps that lead into the door, the cracks, the flip-flops, the plants, everything's dinged up, banged up. It's being used. it has a history. And that's why the setting looks so interesting. When you look inside the shop, again, it looks like a mess. So much clutter. But inside the seamstress's house, everything there has a function. It's necessary. It's being used. Look at the blinds on the right to keep the sun out, to keep the room cooler. They have shelves, they have tables, they have their equipment, even the detail of the floor mat and pillow. She's going to take a break. Everything, every bit of space is being utilized. It feels lived in. It feels like a working space. Take a closer look at the tables. Look at the table. It's got dings, cracks. Everything there is there for a purpose, for a reason. The thread, the lighter, the cigarettes, the coins, the hairbrush, scissors, everything, bits and pieces of cloth. They don't throw anything away because it can be used again later. Behind the sewing machines, you have a rack that you can put the clothes up that are being worked on by the customers. And I wouldn't even notice this, but I moved the door, and in every corner, something is there that tells the story of what is being done in this location. There's that dummy that the seamstress uses to fit the clothes, the jacket, okay? Every corner is accounted for. Look at this little subject. Now this is, everything has variation, right? These are like some metal rods that have been stuck in because a rat or something dug into the wall. They're trying to get into a trash bin, right? But look at this little bitty location. The textures, the wall, everything is functional and interesting. Look at this little wooden door. Again, something has chewed through the corner. You can see the grain in the wood, the walls. This thing has been used. This thing is a natural location. You just have to stop and look at it. And then everything you want to know about how it works and how it's been used and abused. But it is a natural setting. Let's take a look at these food carts. They're all over Jakarta. But everything in this cart serves a purpose. It is a restaurant on wheels. Just take a closer look. Everything. When we see this little door and there's a compartment there inside, there's a kickstand. That board is going to steady the cart as he's working. The handles, the shape of them is to make it easier for the person to hold and push. It's been worn. It's been used. There's no straight edges. Everything's been dinged and banged around. As he gets it to prepare the food, there's a little shelf there, and then he has a little, cloth to keep the flies away from the food as he's preparing the food. There's dishes and all the equipment he needs to wash the dishes after the customer is finished. He has side dishes like the tofu. He's got other little spices and things that they can add condiments to the food. There's even a water jug for either cleaning or whatever. Look at how they're using the nail and the screw for the trash bin. Every detail tells a story. It gives a history of this. This is an asset. This is something that has to be designed. But you have to think about it and you have to observe this stuff. Even that little, whatever that little poster, that plastic he's used overhead to keep him out of the sun or out of the rain. Everything is there and it's functional. Here's another subject crossing my path. Notice what she's selling, the mango, and notice what she's wearing, how she's dressed. The hat keeps her out of the sun. She's got a sarong wrapped around her body and the basket to keep so she can walk and move around, from customer to customer. There's a bag. Everything is very efficient. She doesn't even have a cart. She's just removed the cart and she just walks around with her business on her back. She sets down the mangoes. She takes the scale and the bowl out of the bag, and she's ready for business. She's even got the little plastic bag to give you after you make your purchase. Usually, when an artist attempts to compose a scene like this, they fail their observation skills and experience are just too limited. They've never really studied actual locations, in life. But look at how interesting the broom and all of the bricks, everything there has a purpose. And it has a nice sense of variety. Here's somebody's front door, and it's kind of up high, right? So they had to make this little step stool. Notice the two stairs are made of wood, but the first step is kind of big, so they made use of that brick so they can take an easier 3 steps into their front door. This comes from observation. Look at how interesting it is. Here's a stack of bricks you wouldn't even look twice at, but they're doing some construction. Somebody dumped the bricks and they're using the bricks. So look at the variation. There's some spread out on the ground, different size stacks. It looks natural. So I love looking at anyone I see working. I want to stop and study. I just want to watch the whole process, every tool that's there and how it's used. So in this example, there's 2 guys. They're making a new sidewalk, and they had to also lay some cement down to repair the road. And now they're painting the marker along the sidewalk, black, white, black, white. That's so a car hopefully doesn't run into it and damage the sidewalk again. But notice the little buckets they were using to mix the cement. They used the buckets as a barrier from the motorcycles and the cars as they're working to protect the workers. Notice the tools. We've got a trowel here for smaller details. They got the paintbrush, and the paint. They got a broom. But I saw, what is this bent pipe? This is something they manufactured themselves. I don't know what it's for, but I wanted to find out, so I had to ask the guy. Notice the little swirls in the cement. They made this metal pipe into a tool to smooth. It's much easier to stand and do this than sitting down, right? Because you don't want to put your footprints all over the wet cement. So they stand on the sidewalk or the street and they reach in and smooth that surface out with that tool. I wouldn't have known unless I watched them use it or asked them, what was this for? So watch these processes. Watch how people work. Look at every tool that they have, how they use it, where does it get placed. All comes from observation, okay? Why is all this observation so important to an artist in animation? What if you needed to design and build an asset around a road construction sequence? Wouldn't it be helpful to research and study how road construction is done and what equipment would be needed? In your sequence, there's going to be, some road construction, and the road might need to be closed, and then the road has to be rerouted around the construction site. Most likely, traffic will need to move around the site, but there'll be some kind of signage. Some kind of these cones are lined up. Again, they usually do it 1 lane at a time. They block off 1 lane while they work, and they let the traffic flow around the site. When they're done with 1 lane, then they move the construction and all the barriers to the other lane. Okay? Traffic must move both ways through the street as it goes around the construction site. It seems common sense, but you just have to be aware of it. You have to watch it. You have to study it before you do a sequence about it. Okay? So look at the signs. What is being used in the signage? Here, this is typical. You got the guy holding the sign, right? He's going to either stop one traffic from moving through, and he's going to allow. There's another guy on the other end who's going to allow the traffic to come through. And these 2 guys will usually communicate with hand-arm signals or a radio, right? They have to communicate. The traffic must move around or through the construction site. Okay? Very basic, very important. And when you build the road, you got to know what is the construction. There are many steps, there are many layers to building a road or repairing a road and how to surface a road. These are all just basic details that, of course, the designer must know and the asset person must understand so that everything really makes sense. Take a look closely here. You got a dump truck, right? When you're preparing that surface, you got a dump truck with material that is feeding down into a dispenser. That's what that truck is there, that the black material is going into. Notice there's an umbrella over his head because he's out in the sun. As those vehicles move forward, you're going to see a nice layer that's going to be dispensed behind these two vehicles. And then you're going to see these men with their shovels, and they're going to even out the edges as they're laying out the new surface. So that's what those men are doing along the side until that lane is done, and then they move to the other lane. Followed by the steam roller to make everything really smooth. Everything is very efficient and organized. It's not chaotic. There is a method to their working. So when you do road repair, like in our sequence, it's a little bit different. You don't just start jackhammering and breaking up the road, okay? You don't just get into it. What's the first thing we talked about? The traffic must be routed around the area that the construction is being done. That has to happen first. Then after the hole is dug, you're going to tear up the road, the area that you're going to be repairing or replacing something. Whatever you're going to repair, it could be a water pipe, it could be some kind of electrical wiring, but that's going to be installed in that hole. Then the hole will be filled. You can see the cement truck dropping the cement, filling the hole in once the repair is done. Then the old material is all going to be taken away. Then the road has to be resurfaced. And once it's resurfaced, again, they'll either move to the other lane or the construction is done and all the signage and the barriers and the cones are removed and traffic moves normally. Okay, so when the storyboards were done in the sequence, there was really no understanding of how road construction is done. Notice that both lanes are just blocked. There doesn't seem to be any way someone's going to get through that construction alive, right? It's not safe at all. Notice that there is no buildings here on the right and the left. They're in a cornfield. Yet there's some scaffolding up there. There's scaffolding, but there's no buildings. Nothing makes sense. This gray bot here, he's holding something in his hand. It looks like one of those torches that you'd be holding if you were doing night construction. You'd have to have a light. But this is obviously in the middle of the day. He's going to have a sign, something that drivers can see. It looks like they're doing some kind of repair. There's an area that's been, worked on and then been filled in with the cement, okay? But again, why is there scaffolding over there? I don't know why there's scaffolding in a road construction. In the sequence, when you're looking at storyboards, there are certain things that are story driven, okay? Like this guy who keeps doing the repair and Slick keeps coming through and messing it up, right? That is a running gag in the sequence. There's a climactic scene which involves a crane and Slick is going to jump over the site and go through this cylinder. There is some big inconsistencies, okay? The worker at times is not directing traffic, then other times he's holding a sign, okay? So that has to be thought of, that has to be consistent throughout the sequence. Let's look at what's being done and how this construction is being done, because there is no scaffolding needed in a road construction site. Scaffolding is used when you're building construction uses scaffolding. So the scaffolding goes up as the walls in the building go up. Or they could be repairing windows or the surface of the building. That's what you use scaffolding for. Again, we're in the middle of a cornfield. We're doing road construction. You just do not need scaffolding, okay? So the designs are done. Here the design work that's been done for the road construction location, they've indicated a path where the traffic is going through the construction site, but really it isn't clear what construction is being done. There's scaffolding, but there's no buildings. There's a crane, a waste container, there's barrels, there's barriers with no gray bod to control the flow of traffic. it appears to be, there's construction on both sides of this traffic that's supposed to be going through. Very dangerous. But there is no real clear idea of what construction is actually being done. Again, no research, no logic. This is what the design team must do before the asset department builds anything. Okay? That research has to be done. Because the asset team, this is what they did. The asset team, they just simply, without doing any more research on road construction, they simply reuse whatever assets they have and they follow whatever designs were given. There is no buildings, yet there is scaffolding. The traffic has not been properly rerouted around the construction site. There's been really no attention to what equipment should be used or not be used in an actual road construction site. It is the responsibility of each department to understand what the intention of the scene is, look at what's been done, and then how can it be improved. So each stage has to do something to improve it, to get it right. Okay, you don't just copy it. Okay, so road repair doesn't need scaffolding. We need to know what type of road construction is being done. This gray bod should have a sign directing traffic, right? There should be one guy on either side, right? Remember, traffic flows both ways through the construction site. This is not how you route traffic through a construction site. Look, I mean, that is an accident waiting to happen. Everything is wrong, right? What if that thing drops on the traffic as he goes through, right? There could be accidents. Traffic needs to flow both ways through the construction site. There should be a gray bod on both sides of the construction work, directing traffic, okay, through the site. The cement mixer is nowhere near the work area. The work area is being done on the other side of this waste bin. It's not even in the right place. There's no logic to it at all. Then we see another miniature cement mixer. Again, inconsistencies in scale, and it's nowhere near where the actual cement needs to be, at the construction area where they're actually working on the repair. Doing your job doesn't mean to blindly follow. Doing your job means to understand, ask questions, and do the research to plus the scene. That's how you get the scene right. Every department has to be responsible for doing that research, making sure it's right, or you're sunk. Okay? Obviously, a strong foundation of drawing and design are necessary for a concept artist or designer. Look at these little sketches. When I was at Disney, it was so important to have these observation skills and drawing and working from life. Every little space had history. Everything feels used. Everything it feels lived in. There's nothing straight. Everything's got nicks, broken chairs, broken boards. Everything has a real sense of a living history. This level of detail and variation in the design comes from years of working from live observation. You see how natural this looks and feels? This comes from observation, working from life. The trees, the forest look and feel like a forest. There's a good variety in shape and sizes of these rocks. There is the correct amount of detail in the grasses and mold that grow on these rocks. Every item in this location should be there, and nothing is there that wouldn't be there. Someone has to do the research. This level of attention comes from strong observation skills and a good understanding of design. Every detail is helping to tell the story. Remember, we are artists first. Observation skills are necessary for all artists.
Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the tip. If you want to learn more, stop by again. Better yet, give us a call. We're looking for animators. Bye-bye.